Or you try to stay away from anybody who you think might harm you, whether they're white or non-white. The world is full of harm. I mean, everywhere you go, there's harm, the potential for harm, because the white supremacists like for people to be in danger. That's their thing. They glorify that. I mean, they pump that up. That's a part of their package. They're warlike. They have to be warlike. If you're going to have a system of racism, a political and religious system based on mistreating people based on color, you have to be in a wartime mode at all times. So everyone is now on a battlefield and has been ever since the beginning of the system of white supremacy. Things just quiet down every now and then, or you're just allowed to come and go in certain little pockets, but you're in danger of being harmed, either directly or indirectly, all the time, and you are being harmed if you're classified as non-white all of the time. It's just indirect.
Gus T, Renegade. Just a few quick comments before the video continues. I saw that some non-white people who are a little less confused about racism, they wondered if the actions of Christopher Dorner, if that might be an example of Mr. Fuller's concept of maximum emergency compensatory justice, should be renamed Maximum Emergency Compensatory Act. Absolutely not. Not even close. Any sort of counter-violence, any sort of counter-racist effort should not result in non-white people being harmed. That was the first thing that I saw when I started to investigate what had been reported about these incidents, and that was all I needed to see to know that there is nothing constructive happening here at all. Non-white people being harmed, in this case 2 non-white people being killed, and this is supposed to be a response to racism. That is completely 5,000% unacceptable. It is in no way, shape, or form a counter-racist act. White people would still be most to blame, but this is nothing that black people, victims of racism, should be celebrating, condoning, supporting in any way, shape, or form. You can continue to watch the video to get more information, just to see the harm that has resulted in this. Other non-white people being shot at because the suspect in this case did not stand by their work. I think the final video that you'll see where a black male was pulled over at gunpoint because they said he looked like the suspect, Mr. Dorner. And I mean, that's just, it's incorrect all the way around. It reminded me when I was seeing they got this massive manhunt out for this loose black male. It reminded me of Boston in the late 1980s with Charles Stewart, where a lot of black people were harmed when white people perceived that there was a melanin menace on the run in Boston. Just my view. I'll have more to say about this. Actually, I have a blog post on this that should be accompanying this video. You can check that out and continue to tune into the cows to get more information. Context of white supremacy. It is about replacing white supremacy with justice, not creating more problems for non-white people, and certainly not harming innocent victims of racism.
He was just a really, really good person.
She is describing her cousin, Keith Lawrence, who was found shot to death with his fiancée, Monica Quan, Sunday night. Still no motive as the family continues to seek the public's help in finding the killer here. And tonight, while investigators are trying to find a motive in the murder, his family is asking for the public's help. NBC4's Orange County reporter Vicki Vargas is live for us at the Irvine Police Station. Vicki.
And Chuck, this is where investigators are working around the clock. But as you mentioned, we have learned that in the hours before they were murdered, both Keith Lawrence and Monica Quan were doing something that millions of others were doing. They were at a Super Bowl party. Relatives telling us that when it ended, they got in the car to make the 65-mile trip back to their home here in Irvine. Relatives say Keith Lawrence and Monica Quan spent their final hours together here at a Super Bowl party at his mother's Winnetka home. According to Lawrence's cousins, the couple left about 7 Sunday night.
wouldn't hurt a fly, very gentle. He was just a really, really good person.
2 hours later, their bodies were found slumped over inside Lawrence's white Kia. He had parked on the top floor of this secured Irvine condo complex next to where the pair was living.
I would have never thought in a million years it would have been him.
Lawrence, 27, was working as a safety officer at USC. Quan, 28, was the assistant women's basketball coach at Cal State Fullerton. Michael James coached Quan at Walnut High. He remembers how she could outshoot the boys with her three-point attempts. In a yearbook interview, she described herself then as focused and determined.
She was small, but you can't measure, someone's desire and someone's drive to achieve. And that's her biggest asset, is that her drive to achieve. Everything that she ever tried, she was successful at.
Yes, from Shante Mild.
According to James, Monica Quan looked for the same type of drive in her college players and recruits. This was a game between Fullerton and San Diego. At her family's home in Walnut, there are flowers and notes from neighbors. Quan's father was once a member of the Asian Gang Task Force with LAPD. A former colleague came by the house and said he has his theories about the killing, but would go no further. Back in Winnetka, a second family struggles with their loss and pleads for witnesses to come forward. We know from detectives here that the couple was shot from someone outside their car. We know that there was an autopsy scheduled for today, and we are also being told that that autopsy will continue tomorrow. Reporting live in Irvine, I'm Vicki Vargas, NBC4 News.
For 2 months following the shooting of the Stewarts, the Boston police conducted an aggressive and controversial investigation to find the alleged black man with the black running suit. During the search for a suspect, numerous civil rights violations occurred due to the racist and stereotypical pretenses present due to Stewart's allegations. This was made apparent to the general public because news stations were continuously broadcasting progress on the Stewarts case.
This morning, we're going to check in with Chip to get more on this. LAPD officers were patrolling a Torrance neighborhood to guard a target on Dorner's manifesto. They opened fire on a car they mistook for possibly looking like Dorner's, and injured 2 that were not involved in any of this. And Chip Yost is in Torrance with more on that developing story. Chip.
Yeah, we actually had 2 officer-involved shootings in this neighborhood with 2 different police departments, and in both cases, it now appears there were cases of mistaken identity. Let's take you down here to the active investigation going on right now on Red Beam here in Torrance. This is where this started. Early this morning, you see a blue car or blue truck way down there. In the back of that truck, there are a lot of newspapers. It looks like those people driving that truck were probably delivering those newspapers earlier this morning. It happened around 5:20. From the video we've seen, it looks like it was 2 women inside the truck. But when that truck was coming down the street, there were actually 7 LAPD officers and an LAPD sergeant in this Torrance neighborhood. The reason they were in this Torrance neighborhood is because we're told it has a connection to the Dorner case. They were on protective duty, which we can only take to mean that someone who lives in this neighborhood may somehow have been targeted by Christopher Dorner. Well, as that truck was rolling down the street, the officers saw it. And of course, they've had that bulletin out for the other truck, the truck they believe that Christopher Dorner has been driving. It looks somewhat similar. They see the truck coming down the street. Something happens, causes officers to fire their weapons. They actually hit those 2 women in the truck. Luckily, the 2 women are expected to survive. They're both, we're told, now in stable condition. And on some video we had, we actually saw one of them walking themselves into the ambulance. But that shooting down there actually triggered a second officer-involved shooting, another case of mistaken identity. How that one happened? Well, when the shots were fired in this neighborhood, people called police, said they heard shots fired. Torrance police responded. As they were coming around the corner, they ran into another pickup truck, a different pickup truck that had another driver in it, looked similar. The driver, not the driver, but the truck looked similar to that one they'd been looking for. There was a collision between a Torrance police car and that truck and another officer-involved shooting. Luckily, in that one, the person in that truck was not hit. Again, a case of mistaken identity. Torrance police tell us that the officer involved believed Dorner was in the truck. He was not. So we have 2 investigations going on with 2 different departments in this neighborhood, and all of the streets locked down, as you can see here. That's the latest. Jess, Glenn, we'll send it back to you.
Okay, Chip, thank you very much. I mean, that's
yeah,
crazy. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the story.
Yeah, and she just briefed me on what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's somebody. I'm 6'2", 280. They're looking for somebody 6'2", 275. So they were looking for him on the base, and somebody from the hotel called and said, "Oh yeah, he's right here sitting in the parking lot." You know, I'm like, okay. You know?
So what next? What happened?
I just got off the plane less than an hour ago, so I'm about to go with my boss, and we're about to go do our job. You know.
You're visiting from out of town?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to San Diego.
All right, yeah, gotta love it, you know.
What was the first police officer you saw? Tell me about that part.
The first police officer I saw was out of my rearview mirror in the reflection of the building here, holding a gun behind this SUV over here. So I didn't pay no attention to it, and I just kept sitting there. Then all of a sudden I turned around and looked back and seen another one behind the tree with a machine gun. And I thought, okay, this is not good. So I started listening to what they were saying, because I heard them, but nobody's talking to me. You know, I just got here. Who's talking to me? So once I finally heard what they were saying, I was freaked out a little bit. You know, a little bit. I'm going to take a couple minutes and come back. Blood pressure ease back down.
Put your hands in the air?
Oh, quickly. I didn't even drop my cell phone. I had to drop my cell phone. I didn't even want to breathe. You got guns pointing at you. You don't move. You don't breathe. You don't blink. You don't ask why. You know, you just do what you're told.
Where are you from?
Portland, Oregon.
And what's your name, sir?
Greg Pruitt.
How do you spell your last name?
P-R-U-I-T-T.
You here on business?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Just got here less than an hour ago. You know, if I hadn't lived here for 20 years before, I probably would have a bad opinion, but I know everybody seems to try to come through San Diego to go to Mexico or somewhere crazy.
Have you seen the picture of the guy?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, I'm just curious whether you think you look like him or not.
I would like to see it, because I'll call on him too. You know, somebody called on me. And it wasn't even me, so, you know.
Would you like to see a picture of him?
Sure enough.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
His name is Greg?
Greg.
G-R-E-G?
G-R-E-G, correct.
P-R-U-I-T?
Correct. 2 T's.
Two
T's. Yes, sir.
You find it, Steve?
Oh, so he might be a little shorter and pudgier.
Can I see that?
Yeah, it's all good times, you know. Yeah.
No harm, no foul, huh?
Yeah, no harm, no foul.
But, of course, who's to blame? The white supremacists are to blame. Now, I'll say that, too, as a parting note, because they're always to blame. This is the kind of stuff they engineer. Right from the beginning, they are to blame for all of it. Not some of it, all of it. Because it's in their system.